electric first fleets, multimodal, even small vehicles, mid-sized vehicles, and larger vehicles, and with synergies with our existing consumer business, giving us a great cost advantage and technology edge. It's an example of the agent super app or driver super app. The idea being the single agent in his zone will have multiple verticals in his queue, whether it is doing a quick package delivery or a backlog of less urgent, like battery swapping and fleet rebalancing. So we can soak up all that idle capacity. We've done a pilot in ride hailing, massive market, we know it well, need for competition. There's a monopoly in our region with Uber acquiring Careem. Very experienced founder team. IQ and I, we've worked in 3 mobility companies together. It's our second that we're co-founders in. I also had many years in the Valley before that. And it's a big market. When we say Greater Middle East, it's a very fragmented footprint. That's a feature, not a bug. It's what creates a cost of entry for a local player to come in. It's what requires a regional champion who has full attention and focus to unlock, capture, and penetrate. Very similar to what we saw in Southeast Asia. And I also was with Grab there. So that's the highlights. We've raised $12 million to date, $5 million in the seed round, $7 million in safe notes. And we are open for another mil on the safe, and then planning our Series A next quarter. So I'll stop right here for questions.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, let's start ask questions if anyone has. Cool. There's no questions.
I can ask one quick question.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed the innovation part, but if I understand correctly, what is the innovation like in your startup?
So we are the only, I guess, multimodal, multi-business model platform in our geography, right? Yes, a lot of these products have existed in other countries, but they've not been here and they've not been in one platform. Right? Part of our, I guess, innovation is localization, right? Which we spend a lot on payments tech and also on market access or regulatory capture. And that's part of, it's more of a commercial piece, but it's their focus and attention. And then having the multi-vertical stack, giving us a lot of cost synergies and revenue synergies. So we're not the first to do that. There are other companies that have leveraged micromobility as the optimal customer acquisition vehicle to cross-sell to other services. So Bolt has done this in Europe, scooters to cross-sell to ride hail and food delivery. Yandex has done this even in Israel and Russia, of course, and others have. So learning from some of the experiences that successes in other geographies.
Basically localization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Navid, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you very much for your presentation, JD. Very interesting. Honestly, not specifically my area of expertise, but I have a question that's just it's interesting for me to know your point of view on, because with the recent things that happened, I think with Line, if I'm not wrong, with their plans to go public and everything, and the general I would say shift in investors' view on specifically the scooter, the micro-mobility, the electric bike sharing, the scooter sharing kind of model in the cities that started it first, and now going a bit more mature into the system, and they're now putting more regulations on it, making it tighter. Do you see that also happening in your region? And if yes, how are you planning to counter it? So things that happen to companies like Dot, like Tier, like Lime don't end up happening with you, Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, I think all cities, as they are adapting to this new form of mobility, and they're doing it at their own pace, right, are now coming to grips with, you know, how they want it to work in their city, and there'll be more infrastructure created. Like in Dubai, you know, they move quite slow, but now they're doing a citywide rollout and really integrating it into a multimodal transport network. So not just building new cycle lanes, even taking space away from cars, making slow speed streets, shared streets. Like we're adding the public transit card as a payment method. So you get off the metro and you ride the scooter. But like our view is, you know, the shared e-scooters, I mean, that's just one product, and it's not really an exponential product. It's a linear product, because, you know, cities are not allowing you to increase your fleet exponentially. They're doing it as step function. And there's a cap, I mean, that is growing over time. So we view it more as, you know, a great way to get stickiness, to get customers on, concentrated in an urban cluster, and drive like engagement with those users, right? So that we can sell other things to them. One other piece is, of course, you know, the unit economics are quite important with an asset-heavy business. And so I spent a lot of time in China when I was with Grab, learned a lot from what went wrong, bike share. And then there was, you know, there's a rebirth, and it's very big in China. And that's what made us choose the Gulf and Middle East, because it's the only region that has high purchasing power with low labor costs. Normally they're all correlated, right? Purchasing power and labor costs go hand in hand, and here in the Gulf, it's the inverse. And that's what gives you, like in food delivery, this is the most profitable market in the world, and one of the only profitable markets in the world, mind you. So we're able to run the scooter business, you know, profitably, even with limited scale. But you know, that's for us. That's just how we get the customers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, JD. So let's next. Our startups is Lula. And if you can switch on your camera and presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, let me just share my deck with you guys. Sec.
Yes.
All right, all set. So, Andrew, are you guys keeping time, or should I just wing it?
Yeah, 5 minutes for you, and you can start.
Okay, cool. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Belani Mboweni, co-founder and CEO here at Lula. We're in the middle of a pre-Series A round, raising Series A round, raising $2.9 million, with about 2.3 already done. So if you're ready to cut some checks, we'd love 600K for people in the community. As you know, the continent of Africa is eating up quite rapidly. In fact, by 2025, we'll have more than 1 million people. We don't have the infrastructure to move people from A to B, especially with the growing population. Now, as we unpack those problems, that typically involves high congestion, high CO2 emissions, with the cost of owning a car rapidly increasing. If someone decides to leave their car at home and make use of public transit, that's typically insufficient, unreliable, and has very limited operating times. And this is where businesses then step in and decide to provide a service or give a subsidy to employees to help them get around. In many cases, usual shuttle providers are either too small with scale, lack digital technology, and typically do not have the capacity to serve multiple users at a time. Ultimately, what this leads to is transportation being inefficient and boring and lacks the transparency. And that's where Lula steps in. It's a platform that's connecting companies and their employees to a network of private shuttles to take them from home to work and beyond, really freeing up time, saving money, and the planet. We typically would partner with third-party vehicle owners who plug their vans into the platform and get matched with bookings from businesses on a daily basis on a door-to-door pickup schedule. Currently, we have just over 800 vehicles and counting, specializing in high-capacity vehicles, so 6-seaters up to 22-seaters, but also have a decent fleet of luxury vehicles to help people move around, especially senior management and executives across businesses. Our primary business model is B2B, where we take a 25% commission and companies either sign up for a fixed term contract or month-to-month subscriptions. We had a B2B2C play earlier COVID, but due to some of the costs of that, we kind of paused that until further notice. High level on traction, as I mentioned, 800 vehicles on the platform, an average growth rate year on year of about 4.8x, live in 5 cities across South Africa, over 220 businesses served, gross margin sitting between 25 and 40% with over 300,000 rides completed and over 900,000 tons of CO2 avoided. Now, customers typically use Lula in a multitude of ways. It's not just commuting home to work and back, but also when businesses book rides for their customers or their employees to take trips away, or if you're an executive who has multiple meetings throughout the day, you can book a Lula for the whole day to take you around. We're available 24/7. We're really trusted by over 200 businesses across South Africa, the likes of Yasser, Yoko, Luno, Alan Gray, Air Liquide, Roche Pharmaceuticals, to name a few, and as mentioned, live across 5 cities in South Africa at the moment. Ultimately, we're addressing a $5 billion addressable market with a specific emphasis on the 18,000 medium-sized businesses who have to provide some sort of transport subsidy or service to their employees. And by medium, we're talking 50 to 300 employees with an emphasis on Africa, African markets, and a bit of Asia as we scale over time. Now, there are a number of competitors in the market, but Lula really differentiates itself on 5 key factors. The first is flat pricing, so we do not surge any time of day. Secondly, we specialize in high-capacity vehicles. And when businesses book rides on a daily basis, they get matched to a recurring driver as part of our mission to create sustainable income. And ultimately, we always believe when you book a Lula, you ride who you can trust, whether it's your colleagues, your students, or your friends. So companies who book rides, let's say FTIM booked a ride for their staff, they wouldn't ride with people from Phoenix or Zillow. It always be door pickups for your company. Our team is a team of 33. I have the privilege of leading as CEO, having started businesses prior. I'm an entrepreneur for 10 years. Yusra, head of people, for 8 years. Musha, head of ops, 15 years. Joel, head of engineering, 10 years. Yusra, my co-founder, 12 years, who also started a business prior to this. As mentioned, we've raised a number of rounds, and we're in the middle of a pre-series A. We bootstrapped for a while, went through startup boot camp in 2018, and raised a seed round in 2019, 2021, which had the likes of Launch Africa and Total participating. Currently at $2.3 million, the 29, using the safe note. So happy to have a conversation afterwards. Ultimately, for this raise, we're looking to expand and dig deeper into South Africa and expand beyond just our pure commuting offering, so we can drive to profitability and ultimately reach the priced Series A round within 18 months. For us, we want to win the market and win their hearts. So when businesses think of moving their people, they mustn't say order a bunch of Ubers and try get reimbursed. They just say book on the platform of Lula and it'll all be sorted. That means key hires, fast acquisition, faster development, and faster product deployment.
Okay.
Ultimately, okay. Oh, is that 1 minute?
Yeah, you can this slide and we started asking.
Yeah, so this is my last slide. So yeah, that means getting to 600K monthly recurring, 3,000 daily rides, add 200 new businesses, and reduce 3,000 tons of carbon dioxide. So FTIM and the team, I really invite you to join our journey as we power the developing world to economic prosperity and a zero carbon future.
Cool.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah.
Questions?
Yeah. Impressive results. So yeah, if anyone has a questions, you can just switch on your camera and microphone.
So I have a question, Andre.
Yes, Ivan, go ahead.
Again, my name is Ivan. I'm from team. So the great industry, the great startup, the great story, and my question is about what kind of key features you have compared to the main player in this segment, USA-based company VIA. So how can you win compared to this startup?
Yeah. So firstly, VIA is two things on VIA. VIA is not active in the African market. Secondly, VIA has actually pivoted away from B2C type shuttling and really towards a platform as a service for mobility agencies. And that's primarily due to the fact that they had heavy subsidizing costs to keep their vehicles afloat in a low rate. This model we primarily target B2B on a scheduled basis, and so we don't subsidize drivers, neither do they work for lease agreement. It's primarily plug and play. Ultimately, for us, we want to be able to connect businesses or other organizations to a network of shuttles, very low utility anyway. Those are some of the key reasons why we would fundamentally be better than VIA, despite the fact that they've actually moved their shift from B2C to a B2G over time.
Okay, and what is the most perspective way of business modeling, B2C or B2B? So to some business customers or for just physicians?
Yeah, so I guess it really depends what your end goal is. If you really want to grow fast and have high attrition, you want to choose a B2C model, but that requires a lot of capital in these kind of markets, which is very, very hard. For us, we're really about getting to profitability and bringing a strong competitive mode. So B2B works better, especially because your sales target or your sales strategy is once you're in, a customer typically use multiple services and locked in for a long time, which makes it relatively hard for them to switch. Ultimately, for us, our value is about being a reliable, high quality, convenient ride rather than a cheap and fast ride like most ride hailing services are. So our focus really now is B2B, and over time, as we build up more supply, we could double down our B2B2C vertical as employers or employees and businesses typically would like to use a service outside of work hours, whether to go to a football game or to a concert, etc. So for now, it's B2B.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem, Ivan.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess it's all questions. Thank you for your pitch.
Sure, Andrew.
Yeah. Let's start. The next speech is
Awesome.
Yeah, Debug's here. Yeah, cool. 5 minutes is you can start sharing the presentation. Oh, I see. That's it. Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. So at the outset, I think in contrast, most businesses here were fairly early stage. So kudos to everybody else. Sounds like you're building amazing businesses. We're not taking on, I think, last mile connectivity. So I know a lot of bike sharing startups in the past have tried to solve you getting from your home or back. Instead, I think in the early stages of trying this, we figured out that there is a larger problem to solve in just cycling as an industry. So cycling today in India is a $3 billion market. And as far as we're able to tell, it hasn't changed in 200 years. So all bicycles today are bought on, which means you have to go to a shop and buy one, or you buy one online. And the 3 billion consists of people who will buy a bicycle before they'll have it. Whereas there's probably an equivalent number of people who want to get into cycling, but are unwilling to or unable to make an investment into purchasing the asset before they start riding. This problem further compounds if you think about the fact that you need multiple cycles per household. Cycling is typically a group activity, which means you ride with a spouse, partner, friend, maybe your kids. And so buying per household becomes problematic. The second thing that we've learned from putting these bikes in the hands of users is that they struggle with maintenance and storage of bikes. So in India, we have a lot of apartment communities. Earlier, somebody spoke about how they do delivery in apartment communities. It's a very large market in India. And if you go to the base of any of these apartment communities, you will see bikes that have been purchased and never used again after the first 2 or 3 months. This is typically because they can't maintain the bikes. And of course, the third big thing that we figured out is that cycling hasn't changed in 200 years in the sense that technology has not met cycling. So there's no IoT, no gamification, no community, no leaderboards, no rewards, effectively nothing that incentivizes you to get back on the bicycle and keep riding. The way we solve this today, which is sort of what go-to-market is at the moment, is we put shared bikes inside apartment complex communities. It's a fairly simple go-to-market because we have no theft or vandalism. We've never lost a bike to date. People are in these apartment complexes are willing to typically pay more per ride. So the unit economics makes a lot of sense. The infrastructure inside these apartments is good. So it's very cyclable spaces in contrast to city infrastructure in India. And then everything that we do is driven by the app and the product that they end up utilizing. So the app is heavy on challenges, cycling challenges, rewards, milestones. And we partner with a lot of local brands who sort of dole out rewards. We have streak challenges, weekly challenges, weekend challenges. And we've seen that the largest driver of retention, once you buy a bicycle or an electric cycle, or in our case, share a bicycle or electric cycle, is that sense of community and the leaderboards and the rewards that you earn from riding a bike frequently. Today, we have a little over 500 bikes deployed. So like I said, fairly early stage. We're doing 42,000 rides per month. We have 13,000 paying monthly active users. We're in 150 apartment communities, 200 stations in total. So few apartments have more than one station. And we're an operationally profitable company. So more than half our stations are individually operationally profitable. And overall, month of December was a 14% operating margin. Jan should be a lot better. The month has just ended. These are some of the apartments we work with. I don't know the images are visible, but on the right-hand side, those are the 3 cities that we're live in. Bangalore, 150 apartments, 200 stations in total. The strategy for us has been to acquire very best apartments in the very best cities. So these are 3 cities that we've started with. I think the top 10 cities in India should be the obvious market for us to venture into in the next 2 years. We're backed by Y Combinator. We also raised capital from Tata's Incubation, Digital Impact Square, Emerging Ventures, ANIM, which is a scout fund, founders fund. And we have some very exciting angels on board. So we're a fairly young team starting this, which means we've seen a lot of value in having experienced angels join us, folks from Uber, Swiggy, MyGate. So MyGate, for example, is India's largest apartment community app. They have 25,000 apartments within their community. We have a strategic partnership with them and somebody from their team on our cap table. Early tier mobility founders as well, because we learned a lot on how to sessions and run the business from them. We're currently doing a small round, so 1.2 million in total. Like I said, a year ago, we were in 15 apartment complexes. We ended the year with 150. I'd like to get a 750 apartment complex by the middle of this year. So that's what the capital is primarily for. Yeah, that's the end of my presentation. So that's my email address. Please feel free to reach out if you think that you want to participate in the fundraise. We're also doing it on Saves. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for your presentation. If you want has anyone questions, feel free to ask. Yes.
Okay, I have one question. In team, we saw recently a case, a startup from Europe, which recycles old bikes and sell it again and use in its own bike sharing. And so I have a question about your clean strategy and the recycling strategy. Maybe some key points in your strategy.
What we're hoping for long term is that people don't buy bikes on retail. It doesn't seem to be an effective way to do the entire thing. So ideally, we should be manufacturing bikes that last a very long time. And a bicycle, compared to most assets, like the previous presenter spoke about cars and vans, that's a fairly tough asset class. But cycles are fairly easy. It's a frame and some parts around it. And usually that can be, it's like a ship of pieces that can be kept alive for a very long time. So if you manufacture a very good bike, then I think the longevity of the asset should end up defining sustainability for production. I don't know if recycling existing cycles is on the cards for us today. We'd rather have our own bikes. We run spare parts. It's tight ship and easier operations. So prima facie is how I think about it, but I don't think I've spent a lot of time thinking about the alternative for using bikes that people have already bought. So maybe I changed my mind, but at the moment, I don't think intuitively that makes sense.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Navid, go ahead.
Deepak, thank you very much for your presentation. I think what you're doing is actually very nice. But I have a question because you mentioned the app side of things and the challenges and everything. I definitely see the value in the bike sharing itself, and I really like how you decided to enter the market. I cannot say if it is good or bad because I think it's an extremely local thing. But I feel you have chosen the right way to go forward. But how effective is that app? Like how much of your customer traction or how much of it is associated with the app and the challenges? My first initial thought about it is that it might be a distraction for the team, probably rather than something that brings value. But then do you have data that supports otherwise, or is it something that has already proven value that it's bringing for them?
Yeah, the latter. I think I felt very similarly when we started out, and then my co-founder pushed me to go. And then we've seen that weekends, for example, that explicitly have cycling challenges. An example I can give you is there is another Y Combinator company called Orange Health that we partnered with 2 weekends ago. The offer was you do 90 plus minutes of cycling over the weekend and you get a discount on your next diagnostics test, right? Something like that. And 50% more people rode that weekend compared to the previous weekend simply to win that award. I think it may make sense to take a minute to walk through who our riders are and why they're cycling with us. These are typically people who've not ridden a bicycle in 5 years, right? They didn't have, they wanted to get into cycling, but never ended up buying a bicycle because there wasn't conviction in their ability to build the habit. Once they get on the tilt cycle, typically ride it inside their apartment complex. Since the infrastructure is good, these are safe spaces, not a lot of traffic. They build the habit of the first 3 or 4 rides inside the space and eventually leave the apartment. So then the next 4 or 5 rides take place outside the apartment complex. Right? And then is sort of say, you know what, I want to get on top of my leaderboard, I want to get rewards, I want to get in challenges, I want to join a cycling group. We have routes on the app. So for example, around your community, what are the 1, 3, 5, 10 kilometer routes that you can take? And what are the leaderboards for those routes, right? So then I think they sort of get deeper into wanting to build that as a habit and then making that central to how they think about their health and well-being for the day. A lot of our riders initially used to do a morning or an evening walk. So they just sort of go for a walk in the morning or a walk in the evening, chance upon our bicycles, decide to give it a go and eventually transition into cycling being their activity as opposed to walking. I hope that, today we're very small as a company, so I hope at scale that we're also solving like you being able to get from home to work, work to home, right, with electric cycles, if not cycles if the distance is further. So I think there are other use cases to solve, but at the moment, it's a very small niche, but we know it's a meaningful problem to solve. So that's where we are.
Understood. Thank you very much. Very clear.
Hey, Srinivas here. So I was talking about the gated communities part of it. Thanks for the presentation. I just have one question which we usually face. Do you pay any rental to the gated communities for putting up your station there?
We were lucky enough to watch a few other companies go the rental model and fail. So we've taken an aggressive no rental stance. We position the bikes as a free of cost amenity for the apartment complex. So that's what the sales team says, right? You pay for your gym, you pay for your pool, but you don't pay for the bikes. We give it to you for free. So we give it to your community for free. In return, we do a very small revenue share with the apartment. But in return for the revenue share, the apartment is expected to do active marketing for us. So we do MyGate ads, notice board ads, right, events in the apartment. So we get certain free access to the apartment complex in return for the revenue share. The value for us with this sort of a model and setup is that we don't have to end up spending money on marketing. Like we don't do Facebook ads, we don't do Google ads, we spend no money marketing the product. Like we just sort of reach out to the association and they get it through their residents, and in return they get a small revenue share from the business.
Thanks.
Okay, and the last question, Guy, I saw you have a question. Oh, okay. So yeah, and it was the last question, Deepak. Thanks for your presentation and
thanks, Andrew.
Cool. Yeah, I would like to thank everyone who joined us today, and I hope you enjoyed this session. We will definitely share the decks with all the participants and see you at the meeting on. The next meeting will be about autonomous transport, and V2X already have amazing startups in this field. So stay on touch and see you on the next meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Recording stopped.